Our story begins on Coruscant, shortly after Anakin Skywalker miraculously landed what was left of the Invisible Hand flagship, saving Palpatine, and also bringing the news that Dooku died at his blade. A day that many expected to be one of tragedy after the Separatists attacked Coruscant turned into a day of triumph. With Dooku dead, Master Mace Windu nearly lost his composure for the first time in a long time, as he tried to grasp with exactly what this meant. Dooku was to the Separatists what Palpatine was to the Republic, the center of gravity binding together the web of special interests involved in the CIS. Mace realized that without Dooku, the CIS could crumble to pieces within days. But then he looked to Anakin at the back of the group of senators, and Skywalker looked noticeably uncomfortable, as Windu wondered how he managed to kill Dooku after all this time. Skywalker refused to meet his eye, and Windu could feel the touch of darkness that surrounded the boy. Either way, Windu decided it was something he would deal with later on, and he helped Palpatine inside, escorting the senators with him, and then Windu went to the Jedi shuttle, where Obi-Wan Kenobi was waiting. Anakin was still with the senators, as it was his time to be the poster boy of the battle. He saved Palpatine, he killed Dooku, largely while Kenobi was asleep for the moment, and as the Jedi shuttle rose up away from the executive building, Windu took a seat across from Kenobi. As they flew towards the temple, Windu said that something still feels off about all of this. Dooku's death, it should have brought immediate talks of peace, but Palpatine refused to commit to any peace talks until Grievous is defeated. And so Obi-Wan said that Grievous will be their highest priority to end this war. Windu just shook his head, and he told Obi-Wan that once Grievous is dead, Palpatine will just find another reason to continue this war, another enemy, whether it's the Separatist Council, the senators opposing him, or the Jedi Order itself. Windu just said he doesn't trust Palpatine at all anymore, and it's time that the Jedi face the reality that what Dooku told Obi-Wan at the beginning of the war is true, that the Sith are in control of the Senate, and Obi-Wan really couldn't believe what he was hearing. He and Anakin have been in the Outer Rim for months, more than Obi-Wan cared to remember right now, and Windu had been on Coruscant for pretty much the entire time. And now Windu, teetering on the edge of anger, said that Palpatine has been carving away chunks of freedom, and he bandages the wounds with tiny scraps of security. And what has all that security resulted in? An attack directly on Coruscant. Windu shook his head again, saying Palpatine cannot be trusted, and their best link to learning about the Sith died when Skywalker killed Dooku. Windu turned back to Obi-Wan, and he again asked, how did Anakin do it? Obi-Wan just said that he wishes he knew, and Windu said it's awfully convenient that the only two people who know what happened are Palpatine and Palpatine's poster boy, Skywalker. Their shuttle finally landed at the temple, and Obi-Wan now asked Windu exactly what he was insinuating. And Windu asked Obi-Wan if he truly did not sense the darkness surrounding Anakin after the battle. Obi-Wan thought about it, and he could feel that the darkness on Coruscant was overall much worse than when he was last here, and he didn't think to look inside of Anakin. He and Anakin had a mutual agreement to not feel what the other is thinking. They spent so much time together, there had to be some privacy. And Windu stood up, saying that he senses a plot to destroy the Jedi, and these senses didn't diminish with the death of Dooku. He will want to speak to Anakin soon about all of this. And Windu left, walking through the temple halls, considering the best approach to get the truth out of Anakin. And as for Anakin, he just departed from the executive building to go and deliver his report of the rescue to a handful of senators. He was smiling from ear to ear, and he couldn't wipe the smile away. After months away from Padme, fighting in terrible, grueling battles in the Outer Rim, Anakin had just returned, and he learned that his wife was pregnant, and she was soon due. This was the happiest moment of Anakin's life. He'd always dreamt of raising a child with Padme. The thought would keep him going in the battlefront every day. As he walked through the worst conditions the galaxy had to offer, he would just let himself dream of what life would be like when all of this is over. The report to the senators would go as expected, and soon, Anakin was ready to head over to Padme's apartment, where the two of them would finally spend a night together again. But Anakin's comlink beeped with a message from the Jedi Temple. His presence was being requested immediately. Anakin wanted to ignore it, but he figured this would be quick, so he turned his speeder away from Padme, back to the Jedi Temple. Anakin would be informed that he was requested in Mace Windu's quarters, and Anakin found this to be surprising. He and Windu didn't see eye to eye on much, but Windu respected Anakin out on the battlefront. He really didn't have a choice, as Anakin was among the greatest warriors that the Jedi had to offer. But whenever they weren't in battle, Anakin could sense Windu's disdain, his jealousy, his resentment towards him. Anakin shared many of these feelings back at Windu, but as Anakin entered Windu's quarters today, the Force was actually calm, rather than the usual conflict that seemed to follow Windu. Anakin sat across from Windu, and the Jedi Master opened his eyes, telling Anakin that it is good to have him back, and the galaxy owes him a great debt for the heroics that he pulled off in this rescue mission. Anakin was caught off guard by this praise, and he readjusted himself on the seat, sitting in a more respectful manner as he thanked Windu and said any Jedi would have done what he just did. Windu gave a small smile, and he told Anakin that any Jedi would have tried to do what Anakin did, but most would have failed, as is proven by Master Kenobi's break in the action. Anakin had to stifle a laugh, and he asked what Windu would like from him. Windu said this is about Dooku, and the fact that the attack made less and less sense the more Windu thought about it. Anakin waited a moment, and Windu continued, saying that when Palpatine was captured, that should have been it. The Separatists could have killed him. They could have made the jump to hyperspace, but they didn't. Why? Windu asked. Anakin admittedly had not thought too hard about it. The mission was a success. Palpatine was alive, and he got to see Padme. But Anakin really did think about it now, and he couldn't help but agree. He and Obi-Wan had boarded the ship, and both of them could sense it was a trap. But why would it be? And Windu said that Anakin has always been at the center of everything when it comes to Palpatine's relationship with the Jedi. Perhaps the trap was always to get both Anakin, Palpatine, and Dooku together in the same room. Anakin asked why that could be, and now Windu stared at Anakin with complete seriousness, saying that he needs to know exactly what happened in that spire. How did Anakin kill Dooku? And Anakin briefly remembered what he felt like aboard the ship, as Dooku was in between the blue and the red blades, and Anakin had murdered him. Anakin felt pure shame, the same type of shame that he felt when he slaughtered the Tuskens. He didn't believe the Tuskens or Dooku were innocent by any means, but these were the two main instances where Anakin completely lost control of everything that he's been taught as a Jedi, and he let the darkness out that always lived inside of him, the same darkness that the Jedi Council once turned him away for having inside of him. Windu told Anakin he can sense his conflict, and that Anakin must tell the truth, and so Anakin closed his eyes before telling Windu exactly what Windu had already suspected. Anakin said, "Palpatine made me do it," and Windu breathed a sigh of relief, thanking Anakin for telling the truth, and now he needs to know more. It all would come back to Anakin. It was all a regular fight with Obi-Wan by his side, until Dooku knocked out Obi-Wan. Anakin said that once Obi-Wan was knocked out, he realized that he was the only thing standing between Dooku and his two greatest friends, in Palpatine and Kenobi, so he fought Dooku with everything that he had, and Dooku began to goad him into using more of his strength, more of his emotions. Windu put a hand to his chin to think, and Anakin said he listened to Dooku, he embraced his anger, and he found the necessary power to cut off Dooku's hands and have him at his mercy. Windu nodded, then asked why Anakin didn't just arrest Dooku after that. Now Anakin got to Palpatine, saying that the Chancellor laughed with pure elation at Anakin's victory, and then told him to kill Dooku. It was essentially a direct order, and the more Anakin hesitated, the more Palpatine ordered him to do it. Windu asked Anakin what Dooku's reaction was to Palpatine saying this, and Anakin recalled looking into Dooku's eyes. He was defeated, but he seemed to be in complete shock until his head was severed from his body. And now Windu began to unravel the mystery of the Sith. The only way Dooku would be surprised at his death, after essentially teaching Anakin how to use his emotions to kill him, is if Dooku was promised something else. So Windu decided to let Anakin in on a secret that only a few Jedi are aware of. A few members of the Council believe that Sidious is in control of the Senate, maybe in control of Palpatine himself, and it was Sidious who orchestrated that Anakin board that ship. Anakin stood up in disbelief, realizing that Windu was accusing Palpatine of being close to Sidious, and he said that Palpatine is a good man. Perhaps he was deceived into this web of lies, just like Anakin was. So Windu calmly told Anakin that they can figure this out together. And so Windu asked Anakin to come to Serenno with him, to Dooku's castle. Perhaps they can find the answers that they're looking for. Anakin thought about this, and he really didn't want to leave Padme again. But Windu said that if this mission is a success, and they can find the answers to end the war, then Anakin will become a Jedi Master. And that was what Anakin needed to hear. For years, he dreamt of becoming a Master, making his mother proud, showing that he can overcome his worst emotions. So he would agree to go with Windu to Serenno. The two of them would take off alone within the hour, and Yoda would decide to ultimately not go to Kashyyyk now that Windu was off-world. One of them needed to stay on Coruscant. Palpatine would soon ask about Anakin's whereabouts, and Yoda would lie to the Chancellor, saying that Anakin is going through a 24-hour meditation session to ground himself after his months of constant fighting. It was typical for a Jedi to center themselves like this, and Palpatine hated it, but he decided he could wait another day to escalate his plans. So Anakin and Windu would take a small ship through hyperspace, and they would bring R2-D2 with them. The trip was a bit long, so Anakin would catch up on some much-needed sleep, while Windu sat up front and considered everything. His top theory right now was that Palpatine was Sidious, but he couldn't tell that to Anakin quite yet. The boy was unstable, and Windu was beginning to trust him more and more through all of this. After a while, they did emerge from hyperspace, and Anakin joined Windu up front as the Separatist blockade they were expecting was actually mostly gone, rerouted somewhere else after Dooku's death. Another crack in the Separatist war machine. The two Jedi were able to fly down to the castle, landing at the bottom, using the Force to open the door, and together, the two of them got into the lift that would take them to Dooku's throne room. And as the lift rose through the castle, Anakin and Windu both felt something at the same time. They were not alone. They nodded to each other, then grabbed their lightsabers, and as the lift doors opened, they ignited their blades, seeing the bounty hunter Embo grabbing a data disk from Dooku's console. Sidious had hired Embo to come here and download all of Dooku's information before erasing it from the system completely. And as Embo saw the Jedi, he removed his hat, which doubled as a shield, throwing it at the circular window, shattering it, and jumping out as a small speeder now got to the window, and 10 Magna Guards got out of it to face down the two Jedi. Windu looked to Anakin, and he told him to follow Embo, get that data disk from him, whatever it takes, and Windu said he will stay back and handle the Magna Guards. Anakin nodded, jumping up to the ceiling, cutting a hole to escape, and Windu intercepted the Magna Guards trying to chase Anakin down, forcing all 10 of them to surround him instead. Anakin leapt off of the building, and he chased Embo as the bounty hunter sprinted into the forest where his ship was secretly waiting. Embo went as fast as he could, but it was as if Anakin flew through the trees, and he now stood at Embo's ship as the bounty hunter arrived. Embo pulled his shield into his hands, and he said that killing a Jedi will only earn him more of a reward. Anakin lunged at Embo, blue lightsaber flashing through the air, and Embo twisted his body midair, flipping backwards as he deflected Anakin's strike with his newly reinforced shield. The shield absorbed the saber's energy with a brilliant spark, and Embo landed gracefully on a fallen tree, hurling a trio of razor-sharp throwing knives at Anakin. The Jedi swung his blade, slicing two mid-flight, while sidestepping the third. But in that instant, Embo sprang forward, spinning his shield through the air, forcing Anakin to brace himself as the impact against his blade sent him sliding back through the mud as the shield flew back into Embo's hands. Anakin had met Embo before, and the shield was now better than ever. Embo smiled to himself. His client, Sidious, gave him a new payment as an upfront payment in case any Jedi arrived to stop him. So Skywalker and Embo circled each other as Anakin realized this would not be as easy as he thought. And inside of Dooku's castle, Windu was moving in a defensive blur of motion, parrying each attack from the 10 guards with masterful efficiency. He pivoted low, severing one droid's leg, before vaulting over another, saber carving through one of their chests. A staff nearly struck into his ribs, but he caught it mid-swing with his free hand, yanking the droid into his own blade, before using its falling form as a shield against another incoming attack. Windu pushed outward with the Force, and the remaining 7 guards rolled away, before vaulting off the wall and charging back in as Windu readied himself once again. Back in the forest, Embo vaulted off a tree branch, twisting his body mid-air as he threw his shield like a disc, aiming for Anakin's head. Anakin ducked, but Embo was already moving, flipping over him, kicking off his back to land near the fallen data disk that both he and Skywalker were fighting for. Anakin spun, reaching out with the Force, but Embo anticipated it, snagging the disc with one hand while catching his returning shield with the other. The bounty hunter wasted no time, sprinting up a thick tree trunk before rebounding off, flipping high above Anakin's reach. Anakin growled in frustration, propelling himself forward with a Force-enhanced leap, tackling Embo midair as both of them crashed through a canopy of vines, slamming into the muddy ground below. Embo got on top of Anakin, punching towards his face, but Anakin caught the fist, twisted it, and threw Embo hard into his ship. Anakin moved in, but Embo used a cable to wrap around Anakin's legs, and then he kicked the Jedi hard in the face. And back within Dooku's Grand Hall, Windu drove his blade through another Magna Guard before twisting away from 2 synchronized strikes. He kicked off the desk, flipping over 2 droids as a saber cut through the joints of another. 4 of them remained. 1 lunged, but Windu sidestepped, catching the staff with his left hand, slicing through its torso with his right. Another droid attempted to capitalize on his blind spot, but the Jedi Master sensed the attack, and he whirled around with a crushing force push, sending the droid crashing into the stone walls. Its body was reduced to sparks and scrap, and Windu faced down the last 2 Magna Guards. With a single, fluid motion, he surged forward, saber cleaving through one droid's chest, while his free hand seized the final guard's staff, twisting it violently to the side. The droid staggered, and Windu ended it with a swift, downward strike, its mechanical body collapsing at his feet. Windu took a moment to catch his breath, and he ran down to try and find Anakin. And outside in the forest, Anakin and Embo still grappled in the mud, the disc slipping from Embo's grasp. Anakin reached for it, but Embo struck first, driving his shield into the Jedi's side like a battering ram, sending him tumbling away. Embo launched himself off a tree, shield raised, and Anakin dashed forward, saber ignited once more. The 2 of them collided mid-air, and the shockwave of their collision knocked all the leaves off of the nearby trees. Anakin slowly got up, and as Embo dove for his shield, Anakin pulled it into his own hands with the Force before launching it back at Embo, knocking the bounty hunter out cold, right as Windu finally arrived. Anakin scooped up the data disk, and Windu asked Anakin if all of his missions were this chaotic. Anakin asked Windu if he was too tired to keep going, and Windu just shook his head as they now ran back to their ship. Upon arrival, Anakin plugged the disk into R2, and R2 scanned the files until the droid found something that the Jedi would be looking for. R2 played a hologram that was sent to Dooku's castle many months ago now, and it was a hooded figure. Dooku's voice came through, saying their plan has gone undiscovered, and he referred to this figure as Master, confirming that the hologram was of Sidious. Dooku said that the clone in question is dead, and the Jedi still suspect nothing. The hologram of Sidious spoke, saying that no one will be able to stop their plan to execute Order 66. And upon hearing the voice of the hologram, there was no more mystery. This was Palpatine, and Anakin felt so betrayed, but he had no reason to have any more loyalty to Palpatine. He asked Windu what this meant, and Windu quickly realized it all tied back to the clone inhibitor chips. And without wasting another moment, Windu contacted the Jedi Temple, and he told Yoda to send an order out to all of the clone troopers, have them shut down all of their communications, and go completely dark until their Jedi commanders say otherwise. Yoda nodded, and Windu said they will move on Palpatine when he returns, as they have the truth. And so as Windu and Skywalker flew through hyperspace back to Coruscant, this mission affirmed to Windu that he can indeed trust Skywalker. So he told the young Jedi that when they face Palpatine, he will be a part of the strike team. And on Coruscant, hours later, Palpatine was trying to contact Embo to get confirmation that his mission on Serenno was a success. Sidious needed that data disk to ensure it could not be used against him, and as Embo never responded, Sidious decided to enact his plans early. Order 66 would be executed right now, and Anakin could soon join him, or he could die with the rest. Palpatine moved to his communicator, and he began contacting the clone commanders, but for some reason, none of the clones were responding. All communications were offline, and amidst Palpatine's new panic, the doors swung open as Yoda, Windu, Anakin, Fisto, Kolar, and Tin all entered with their blades ignited. Sidious finally had his patience completely shattered, and he erupted into a whirlwind of fury. A scream of pure hatred ripped from his throat as he ignited his red blade, lunging forward with unnatural speed. Sazy Tin barely had time to react before the Sith Lord's blade tore through his chest, and then he did the same to Agen Kolar. Their deaths were instant, bodies falling, and the true battle would begin. Windu led the counterattack as Fisto and Yoda flanked Sidious as they struck from either side, forcing him to twist and contort his body to evade. Anakin was using his powerful strikes, hammering against Sidious's defenses, each blow forcing the Dark Lord to step back. But this Sith was no ordinary enemy. But alas, the Jedi pressed on, coordination relentless now, and a precise strike from Windu sent Sidious stumbling backwards, just enough for Yoda to drive his blade deep into the Sith's chest. The Dark Lord shrieked, eyes wide with shock, as Anakin delivered the killing blow, and the Force seemed to sigh in relief with the Jedi as Sidious finally died, and with Obi-Wan defeating Grievous on Utapau, the war could come to an end. And thanks to the data disk from Serenno, there would be no doubt in the Senate as to Palpatine's true intentions, and both sides of the war would be able to see the true corruption came from their greatest leaders in Dooku and Palpatine. When it was over, Anakin would finally get the dream life he always imagined with Padme and his children. He would become a Jedi Master, but he would decide to instead leave the Order. Padme also left politics once Bail Organa was Chancellor, as she knew the Senate was in good hands, and among the first visitors to their home on Naboo was Mace Windu. He was grateful to Anakin for choosing the right path, with him by their side, and Skywalker and Windu saw their own relationship grow to a level better than ever before in the newly peaceful galaxy. And folks, that is where this story ends today. One I had a lot of fun with, and one I hope you did as well. One that I kind of went back and forth on just with ways I wanted to handle this. Ultimately, I knew I wanted Windu and Skywalker to sort of end up on a mission alone together. And this is also kind of a concept I don't think I've really seen explored. You know, we've obviously got Anakin telling people about his visions, about Padme, about whatever. But there's this part in the Revenge of the Sith novelization when Anakin does return from rescuing Palpatine that Windu can really just sense that something is off with all of it. So I wanted to go down a path where Windu really explores that different path, right? And comes to the conclusion with Anakin that there's more to this than meets the eye. And ultimately they go to Serenno. Then I wanted a fun fight scene. So we got 10 Magna Guards versus Windu, and we got Embo being Captain America basically with his shield. So I had fun with that. Hope you did as well. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next video.